Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's discussion, why every business needs an AI bot on their website, where we'll cover real wins, smart strategies, and tips for how to get started. I'm Charlie Nadler, Chief of Strategy at Simple Machines, and I'm here with Jill Golden, President of Simple Machines, and Tim Stahl, the Principal Engineer and Technical Partner who's been on the front lines of building and deploying AI bots. To set the stage, AI has obviously been in a hype cycle for a while. There's been a lot of hot air, but what we're starting to see is a real shift. And the shift is essentially from buzz into more practical, real business use cases. So today, what we're going to do is dig into one of those most effective use cases that we're seeing, which is AI-powered website bots. So, Tim, I'd like to start with you because your background really includes the gamut about every type of tech there is. Why focus on AI chatbots?
Sure, it's a great question. Well, it's a very easy barrier to entry. And so you got to start someplace. And it's very visible to your customers. Like the first thing your customers go is they see your website, it's the front door to your company, and they see, oh, here's practical AI that's helping me, and it's a service to your customers. And the sky's the limit. So it's easy to get your foot in the door, and then you can see what kind of questions your customers are asking, and then you can expand accordingly. And so it's the best of all worlds.
And Jill, from your perspective, I mean, why is this an obvious place to start? Obviously, there's a lot of different types of AI businesses are thinking about why AI chatbots.
As far as tales from the front lines go with our clients and prospective clients, small business owners and the types of businesses that we work with, small businesses, many executives and founders and owners and sales resources are stretched pretty thin. They're often juggling sales and account management and customer service, and this leads to lagging response times and diminished customer experience. And so many of these people compete on their customer service and customer experience. And so they easily see this as a competitive edge. As Tim mentioned, it's very easy to pilot, and it's something that as they're looking to dip their toe into the AI water, it's something easy that they can operationalize quickly with very tangible goals associated with response times, lead coverage, things like that. So what we're seeing is it's an easy way to take a very straightforward AI use case and deploy it within their organization.
And let's kind of dig into some specifics there when you're talking about objectives and value. So it's going to depend on the type of business, but Tim, let's start with you. What are some of the more common areas where businesses are maybe seeing value, return on investment? Like, what are the tangible gains that these bots tend to be delivering for clients?
If you start with the website chatbot, the first one is helping with customer conversion, where if instead of someone navigating your whole website trying to guess what they want, they can just directly start talking to a bot in normal conversational tone. It's easier for them to find what they're looking for. You can take that a level further and put the bot over your search catalog so it's easier to find the product they want to buy. And it's easier in terms of customer retention. A lot of times, if you ask an owner, what are the top five concerns that your website visitors have, they won't really know offhand because how would they know? Like if the barrier is too high, someone's not going to submit a form and tell them, but they start talking to a bot right away. And so the customer intelligence that someone gets, that the owner gets from it, I mean, it's hard data, and every owner that they want to make decisions based on actual data, actual customer feedback. And so that's just on the web chatbot side. But then like you can go down a great big pipeline of if it works to be able to talk to the web, well, you could take that exact same thing and share it with your back office employees. And let's say there's HR policy or finance policy lookup. And now, like before, you could have an employee who they wouldn't want to ask a question, and now they could talk to the bot and get answers that they didn't even know. It could bleed into helping them avoid safety violations because no one wants to look silly asking a dumb question. And now they can ask the bot, "Hey, what's the safety protocol for blah blah blah?" without fear of judgment. So it's so many different angles that it can help and measure them on.
For sure. Yeah, and Jill, I'd be curious what you think there too. You're talking to prospects and clients every day that are asking questions, sharing their challenges. How might this line up with what they're looking for that that you're seeing?
Yeah, so a big one that I come across a lot is plugging a leaky funnel with just like lead response times and follow-ups. Talking to a life sciences company that was missing over 200 leads per month. And we were able to, show how the bot can respond, tie that information directly into their CRM and marketing software, and just the revenue potential once the conversion math was applied, like how Tim had alluded to earlier, was a big aha for them. And the fringe benefit that Tim mentioned with the insight loop for what people or prospective clients or visitors are asking, it's really a great revelation to what people want and what they want to experience on the site. We have a manufacturing company that has a bot deployed on their website that is specifically trained on all of their product data and SKUs and how various products can be used for applications and in design. And the bot fields product questions all day. It's been trained to recommend various products based on application. It can tell what it can do well, what it can't do well, and it's continuously tuned and trained so that the answers get better over time so that it doesn't just, obviously give a correct answer, but it can give an answer that's correct and perhaps more advantageous to the company by recommending a higher margin product or something like that. So seeing what people are asking is really great to create that feedback engine for things like sales scripts. What are FAQs we can anticipate from people as we're talking to them? What can we use to help inform marketing content or product decisions based on what people are most curious about or maybe asking for that we don't have yet? So every interaction is going to not just teach the bot something, but teach you something too.
Totally. That I have to admit that was one that fringe benefit of insights was one that hadn't occurred to me until we started deploying these. And then yeah, you're right. It's sort of a gold mine of, oh, what we thought people were going to ask about might not be what they're actually looking for. Now we know sales messaging, campaign ideas, content that we should be getting out there. Super, super valuable.
Yep. And as it's fielding those questions and those interactions, it can start to qualify, get like name, email, contact info, and then taking that one step further from just the question and answer exchange, but being able to capture that info and dump it into something like your CRM or HubSpot instance is really key too. And something very easy to deploy and technically solve as well.
Cool. And one thing I think we should clear up too, because when we're talking about bots, I don't want to assume everyone is as deeply familiar with the different types of bots out there. So when we're talking about AI bots, Tim, maybe you could explain the difference of, if someone in the past has had experience with a dumb bot where it's only
Mhm.
able to answer specific questions, it's a frustrating experience. Can you just give an explanation of what we're talking about? How is this different than that?
Sure. So you could have a d- a dumb bot where it's very poorly trained, and you just throw bad documents, bad training, bad tuning. Like canonical example, if you were to ask like it's trained on the entire World Wide Web as opposed to your specific, it starts giving your competitors referrals and products. Like you ask, hey, what's a good product for XYZ? And it's trained on the World Wide Web, so it gives your competitors info for you. And it's like with friends like that, who needs enemies? Or you could have it where it doesn't really handle PII correctly, or it's just it doesn't actually get the real practical answers. It will give you a great big long-winded answer to a question you didn't ask. Or the canonical example is they hallucinate. And so one of the brand damage concerns that a lot of customers have to be aware of if they go with cheap bots or something like that is someone a punk will ask it, why do you hate purple elves or something, fill in the blank. And the AI canonically is trained to be, yes, helpful answers. It's like, oh, we hate purple elves because of, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you totally so the hallucination becomes a really big problem. Like even you're asked a bot, hey, I need you to set up an appointment, but the bot was, or I need you to give my account balance, and the bot was never even trained for that. And it starts saying, yes, I've received your resume and I'll forward it along. And there's no back office hookup. And so now you got a customer thinking, I gave my info to the bot. Why? So you're opening up your front door. And if you do it the wrong way, it can really go badly. And so what a lot of people have seen is the tech first came out and it's really cool. And so there's all these sort of ambulance chasers that rush out to say, oh, look at this cool tech. But it's not applied in a practical way. And it gives out a lot of garbage in, garbage out. And like, yeah, so long answer to short question. Like there's a lot of ways to poorly train a bot.
And I think it ties directly into another common sort of question that'll come up, which is we see all these AI, agents, bots out there. Some of them are very cheap, and I can just buy one, throw it on my site, good to go. What we just talked about, why is that important to not necessarily do a set it and forget it? Like how is a managed service a better
Sure, sure.
practice?
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. And so think of it like you can go get a WordPress subscription for $9 a month. That's a universe different than here's our entire website that's the front door to everything. And so part of being a managed service, there's the trained professionals involved to walk you through end to end, but there's also the platform that they're using. And even if someone says, like you could go onto GitHub today and pull down some models of something and, go nuts with it. But then think about how much staff time you're spending on that. And then think if your staff is truly smart enough to reverse engineer an entire platform over the afternoon, because every developer could just do it in an afternoon kind of thing. Well, if they're truly that brilliant, wouldn't they be better put to use on your proprietary company roadmap doing features that only they can do? And so a lot of people will compare apples and oranges. They'll say, oh, I can get free cheapbots.com, something. And they ignore the amount of staff training. They ignore the amount of customizations. They ignore that the first time you run into a roadblock and you're like, oh, the platform, it's kind of like you can get a cheap bicycle from a garage sale, but if your goal is to go to Hawaii, the bicycle's not going to get you there. It doesn't matter how cheap the bicycle is. And so a lot of people, there's sort of tyranny of the urgent, and they say, well, I got the cheapest transportation mechanism possible, but it's actually going to be a lot more expensive when you realize it didn't work to begin with, and you just got to restart from scratch, and now you're further behind.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to dig into something too, is we're talking about this not only a theoretical, but we've been deploying these bots for a while now. We're starting to see the transcripts and the summaries come through. You know, Part of this is seeing how the evolution of the bots is taking place with the training and service. Jill, maybe starting with you, you alluded to some of this, but what has struck you as you've been watching, these bots being deployed and feedback from clients?
Yeah, I think what's been interesting, what I've been seeing, and to Tim's point, you can you can deploy one of these with like a cheap overseas service, but like this is almost like an ambassador for your brand that's speaking in on behalf of your company and answering questions on your behalf. I know I don't trust my business to a $5, like I wouldn't trust my business with a $5 a month like overseas solution to do that. Um, so I think people are starting to see the differences uh, from what Tim described versus like the cheap alternative. I also think people are understanding that the bot is only as good as the data and the information or product data or internal knowledge base. Whatever you feed it, it's only as good as that, just like any other employee. So a bot may give a correct answer, but it might not be the best answer that you would give in that similar scenario or conversation. So they they appreciate the iterative aspect so that there is an oversight component, if you will, and an opportunity to continuously uh, improve and train with real data that it's experiencing on the front lines. Something I wanted to touch on too, uh, Charlie, harkening back to a few moments ago about not just like why the managed service matters, but why this is different. I think in a lot of people's experiences, they've seen a chatbot that is very like rigid and decision tree based, where like for instance, do you do tours in Miami. And the answer it gives is, here's our book a tour page. And it's like, it's not giving you answers, it's parsing keywords and then giving you the answer that is associated or toggled to that. That's not like a real conversational or AI enabled bot, right? So I think what has also been interesting for clients to see is just the difference in the caliber of conversations that this can have versus what they're used to from their prior experience or what was available to them just a couple years ago.
That's a good point and an important distinction because I do think a lot of people now still you think chatbot and you think decision tree if then logic, and those are never good experiences and rarely get you the answers that you need. So glad you called that out. Thinking about the real world examples that we're seeing right now, and Tim, I want to get your thoughts too. I think some of the interesting things I've seen are one client, it's a consulting client, and they've gotten some chats coming in different languages that the bot has fielded, which is a use case that I hadn't thought about, but is pretty handy and saves a lot of time. The manufacturing client that Jill mentioned, it's answering tons of product questions. And what I heard from the client recently was even when it tells a visitor, no, we don't offer that product, they're very happy about that because they don't have to have a salesperson answer the call and explain that to someone. So it's just freeing up a ton of time. Um, any other trends jump out to you or anything strike you about what you're seeing, Tim?
I think one of the other things that jumps out about the comments is knowing the proportion of each comment so that to know that, oh, 25% of our people keep asking the exact same question. Like it's one thing to say somewhere someone at least asked it once, but then the next follow-up is, well, how big of it? Like is half of our audience asking the same thing? And to be able to help quantify that with actual data, like when you're on the front lines owning the business and you got to make decisions all day long, and it's almost a breath of fresh air to have data to support what you have to do. And so then when you can look and say, wow, half of our audience keeps asking about, what's our made in the USA product line or not, or, it's starting to speak a different language. Like we didn't know that we were getting Polish and Spanish speakers, and it starts opening up your eyes and then with like even as you see how do your visitors talk to you, you start to see their tone, their keywords. Like a lot of people don't want to be put in a box, and kind of like to yours and Jill's earlier point, when you have these if-then bots, pick your keyword, and the first thing you like none of those problems apply to me. I got something different, and then people just get frustrated. And instead, for it to take the opposite approach, you just say, "Hey, I'll listen. Whatever on your mind, I'll listen." And to be able to do that 24/7, like a lot of times people are really busy. By the time they finally get around to looking at your site and they see one of these old school things of, talk with a live agent, come back on Monday, it sends the wrong message. So there's just a lot of measurable things that, to your earlier question, a lot of insights it gives there.
For sure. Yeah, it's been eye-opening, definitely. So let's say someone is watching this and they're thinking, okay, this all sounds great. Um, I'm interested. Jill, let's start with you. What do you think some good first steps are to kind of prepare for this process to get things in order for this to be a success?
Yeah, good question. So I think specifically looking at it through, let's say, like the sales or marketing use cases, I think thinking about like defining a goal based on where your sources of friction might be. Like if it's with conversion on the website, or if it's with, lead follow-ups, or if it is, hey, we have a ton of traffic coming to the site and they're looking for very specific info, being able to usher them to that content or to that page directly. So thinking about the goal in mind, like where do we currently experience, concerns or frustrations, or what have we been hearing from prospects or customers that this can help alleviate? So, like, define the goal. I would say start simple. Like we said, the just the question and answer bot is a very easy sort of foray into AI to deploy And then, what's exciting is then people will start to ask like, well, could it do this? Could it do this? Um, and then I would say, leverage what you already have. A lot of folks that we're working with, they already have like CRM, they're already using something like a HubSpot, they've got a website. So use that to uh, pump the bot full of knowledge, and then also just like set expectations right. It's like training any sort of new employee. It's only going to know what you give it, and it's not going to be perfect on day one, but it's going to get better as folks use it, and then just commit to the iteration. Be open-minded about it. Solve for a very easy, specific, low risk use case, and go from there.
I like what you said about it only knows what you tell it. And I think something we've seen is that is another fringe benefit of if the bot doesn't know something, maybe it should be on the website. Like we've seen that sort of cycle of optimization happen, which is a nice upshot. And Tim, to Jill's point about, people start getting in their heads, can it do this? Can it do this? I mean, of course, the bot can do a lot, right? It can do calculations, it can do catalog searches. What do you think a good sort of order of priority is for new users to start approaching that?
Yeah, and like and definitely I put the disclaimer that the bot that Simple Machines is offering can do a lot. Like there's a lot of the cheap bots that it cap out where it can't call an API effectively. It can't be trained on certain docs. Like it's but yeah, like once you can call an API, you can start to do almost anything. And so like Jill's point about mentioning HubSpot, HubSpot has a wonderful API around it. And so whether it's talking to leads, talking to like all the this sort of anything in HubSpot that has the API to it, you can connect that with the bot so that it could insert a lead or even do a text-based lookup. Like you're about to do a sales conversation, you're trying to remember someone, you talk to the bot, hey, remind me who's, Marge Simpson, and the bot's able to connect to HubSpot. And it's worth noting on a security point that because the bot has an API that can call out, it's not slurping all your secure information into the bot. So you keep like one of the things that's great how Simple Machines approaches it is it's a really assist respect security first. So you've got your secure source of truth, something like HubSpot, and then the bot can call into it, as opposed to there's a lot of cheap bots kind of thing or bad bots that will say, "Hey, give us all the keys to the kingdom," and then our bot can function. And so once the bot can call APIs, you're kind of home free. Like you can connect it up to things like Zapier and N8N and HubSpot, and it can and run. So like one use case is to be able to connect it to a Google Sheet as a calculator, where the client maintains the Google Sheet, and then the bot's able to call out to it. Another case is be able to looking up in HubSpot. Another case is like being able to book a meeting, or I mean anything that exposes an API. You now have thousands of options.
For sure. Well, I know we've covered a lot today. So we talked about why businesses should adopt bots. We talked about the differences between smart bots and dumb bots and how teams can start thinking about getting started. So, Jill and Tim, I appreciate your time today. And if anyone wants to learn more, we've got plenty of resources at simplemachines.marketing.com. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
So much.